Hey, Alicia, what's up? What's going on?
Hello, everyone. Hey, Camille. How
Hey,
you
sis.
doing?
It is so good to see you. First of all, thank you again just for coming back and taking time out of your busy schedule to join me on the Speaker Podcast. Every time you've been on, I've had really good feedback, and I was like, you know what? It's time to bring Alicia back. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, girl. Such an
Of
honor to
course.
be able to join your platform and to continue this conversation about mental health because it definitely continues to need to be a conversation and, kind of breaking that stigma. So I'm excited to jump in.
That's so true. So, for those that are not familiar with who you are and what you do, just kind of give a little bit of background about who you are.
Yes, I'd love to. Hello, everyone. I am Alicia, as Camille introduced me. Oh, this is okay, girl. I'm sorry that I got a little distracted, but I did not know StreamYard brought in the comments from Facebook. That is so cool.
Yeah, they've really upped the ante on the features. I absolutely love it, girl.
I'm sure. Okay, but back to the introduction. I was like, oh, okay, come on, StreamYard. But I'm Alicia, and I am a Nashvilleian. I am a mental health therapist in the Nashville area, serving young adults and then also adults. And I'm just honored to be here to continue that conversation about mental health and just getting to a place of healthiness and a life that you feel fulfilled by. So that is me.
Thank you so much. With that being said, hey, what everybody, what's up? It's your girl Camille Essick. I'm host of the Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and creators connect. Be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe, and also follow me on. I am on Instagram at Camille.Essick and also YouTube at Camille Essick Official. I am working to build up my YouTube channel, so please go out there and subscribe and follow me. I do have merchandise available on my Instagram pages at Good Black Men Official, as well as Chemistry Room Fragrances. Be sure to use the coupon code. We do have a new coupon code. It's at the bottom of the marquee on the lower third. That is SMR23. That way you can save 15% when you subscribe at the checkout. With that being said, we're going to hop right into the conversation. I love having Alicia here just because she gives so much insightful information through her professional expertise in terms of mental health. So, Alicia, the first thing I want to tap into is we see a lot of times on social media, people go live and they're on live crying. They're spilling all their personal bit. It's like they're bleeding. I call it bleeding online. And we see a lot of bleeding online on social media. Or two part, they may have a circle and they're bleeding amongst a circle of friends that don't have the capacity to serve their mental health needs. So, can you kind of break down the importance of bleeding in safe spaces?
I can. I think it's important, especially as you like mentioned the live people kind of talking to other people who may not be like a safe space for them. One of the important to remember is how are you feeling when you're engaging in that conversation. So if
Mhm.
you're speaking with someone, or let's just say you did go live and you started noticing the feedback that you're getting after you go live, and it's something that didn't make you feel that well, I think that's important to remember and to think through, like, okay, if I didn't feel well doing this, how can I handle the situation different moving forward? And I think that's really important to kind of take into consideration when we do feel like we're having a rough day, tough time. Think about that girlfriend that you talk to or that homeboy that you reach out to and you're like, okay, this is what I got going on. Do you feel like they're judging you? Do you feel like they are kind of hearing you? Do you think that they are just giving you a space to be you and to communicate with them the things that they have going on? So I think it's really important to remember to think about how you feel when you are having that moment of release. And so keep that in the forefront, because if you're feeling bad, then think through how you can handle the situation differently.
Yeah, I agree. To me, and this is just my personal opinion, I feel like sometimes when we see people going live and they are, you know, having these moments online where whether if it's a meltdown, crying spells, whatever you want to call it, to me it's like a cry for help. It's like a last resort because I feel like if you had a circle or a place that was more supportive, you wouldn't be going online doing this. And so to me, it's like a scale on a zero, 1 to 10. Maybe talking to a friend, journaling, therapy. But if you don't have all these other points, by the time you get online, to me, it's like we're at an 8, 9, 10. What are your thoughts on that?
I think every person is different.
Hmm.
Sometimes people may go live to get attention, some go live because they don't have the tools that other tools that they can use that's kind of getting them to a place of releasing things in a healthier way. And so I think depending on the person and depending on the frequency, it could be that it's a cry for help. Sometimes it can be that they don't know or have the other tools to really communicate how they're feeling. And other times it honestly may be that they don't have that safe space. I think it's so important to remember that when people have hard days or tough times, it's not easy to come and tell somebody, oh man, I'm having a hard day. First of all, we don't want to deal with it ourselves, but then to have to go and repeat that situation to someone else, sometimes it's very tough and very challenging. So if you feel like someone is like acting out or being attention seeking, sometimes it's because they haven't really had a safe space to come to. So I would encourage us, especially if you have a close friend or if you have a confidant or someone that you know you can lean on and they can lean on you too, value that relationship and also think through how you can be present in those times that they are having, you know, those hard times that they're having. Because sometimes it's about the safe spaces that aren't being created. And if you have it, value it, and then also think through how you can kind of manage that safe space for not only yourself, but whoever you're connected to.
That's good. So what are some of the tools that people should have to kind of combat having a meltdown online or just even just dealing with their emotions, period?
Love some emotional regulation. There are, I really do, because when we hear, I don't know if you all have heard that term before.
No, like break that down. I like that term.
Okay. So emotional regulation, just in a finer way of saying it, is just how can I get through this emotion, or how can I express myself through what I'm going through. And so when we're thinking through emotional regulation, you may feel a very strong emotion like anger, frustration, irritation, but you still have to conduct yourself in a way that's regulated. So you're not acting in a way that can either, you know, get you in trouble if you're in a school setting, or get you written up if you're at work, or get you, you know, if you're talking to your friend crazy, like kind of have some issues with that friendship.
Yeah,
So
like acting out.
yes. So being able to regulate yourself, what it really looks like is accepting the emotion.
Okay.
Sometimes when we think of that anger about being let down, or we think about being hurt, we don't want to feel that. If you think about like just the human, we're not trying to be upset. We're not trying to feel bad.
Right.
Able to allow yourself to feel is a start to that regulation process. But then allowing yourself to process through that too. I love how you mentioned journaling earlier. Some
Yeah.
people like to journal. So if you can write out what you're feeling in a journal, and it kind of, that's you. You're like, let me get this off my chest.
I'm a journaler.
Yeah. And that's good because you found what works for you. And so it could be journaling. For other people, it may be that safe space that you were talking about before. I know you mentioned therapy. It may be therapy and really working through what kind of caused you to feel dysregulated in the first place. But ultimately, it's having that awareness and that knowledge within yourself of saying, okay, I don't feel okay right now. How can I manage and get through this storm? Or how can I manage and get through this wave in order to function whatever I'm doing in that moment?
I love that. And you know, you and I talk offline. I'm a huge advocate for therapy, and those like you in your industry, I applaud you many times over because I really don't realize people don't understand how important you are to our world as far as in our headspace. I've done it on and off for years just because people maybe get mad at me, but I just feel like outside of church, yes, prayer is important, but there are a lot of people in church that are not like properly trained to handle certain things. And I
Yeah,
feel like sometimes in church, not that people mean harm, but some things can be said that can actually trigger or push people into a direction they don't intend to, just
for
because they
sure.
don't have that training. So yes, go to church, pray, fast, all that, but there's nothing wrong with talking to someone just to talk out some deeper issues. And when I really got outside of the stigma of therapy, particularly, you know, you and I grown up in the same church and we've had those talks offline. But it was just like a space where I could not feel judged. A Reese meaning the church, but not equipped because um and what I mean by that, Reese, just to clarify that statement, is there are many people in the church that are not trained mental health therapists. They're not clinical psychologists. They're not trained in mental health fields. Yes, you know the Bible, and yes, the Bible is great, but there are some things that air quotes there are people in ministry they're not equipped for, and I just really feel that outside of the church realm, you do need your healthcare professionals, your mental health care professionals to couple that on top of just praying about it. Because I think within our culture, mental health has been so taboo, and that's one of the reasons why I have this platform is to tear down some of the myths and false narratives as far as um, surrounding mental health. And yes, that is correct, being so spiritual but not earthly good. And the reason
Mhm.
why I love therapy so much is because it's a space where you don't know me, meaning it's not like you've known me since I was a child. And
Non-biased.
non-biased, that's what I was getting to. I feel like you can be more comfortable talking to a total stranger without having that bias or that spiritual judgment versus having someone that you know in church. Two, my second point is the reason why I love journaling. I found journaling to be such a safe place because even if you're in therapy, um, maybe you're apprehensive about bringing this to your therapist right now. You may do it later, but I feel like the pen and paper is the most non-judgmental space because the paper is not going to tell on you. It's not going to judge you. It's just you and that pen and God, where you can just totally be raw. And then when it's over, if you want to tear it up, burn it, throw it away, flush it down the toilet, but it's just such a free space. And there's times where I have been in a journal and written out a whole situation of something I was experiencing. Maybe it was something from my past or a feeling, and in that moment I was able to write down the situation, cry, do what I had to do, and then I found myself finding the answer while I was writing, going, oh, that's why I was feeling like this. It was because of that. And it's almost like you're talking out loud to yourself, but it's through the pen.
Mhm. Mhm. I
So
love that you found like that space and that outlet for you to be able to think through some of life's hard days and to think through some of the things that, you may be experiencing. Like you said, it's a space that you know that you feel that release. If you
yeah.
discard of it afterwards, or if you close your journal and put it somewhere safe, you're able to get it out. That's one of the most important factors when it comes to expressing yourself and releasing things, is not holding on to the baggage.
Yeah, and sometimes, and it's not always because something's bad. It's just even sometimes if I'm having a great day or maybe life is happening and I need to make a decision and I'm not sure how to go about it, I'll journal and I start all of my entries with, hey, dear God, blah, blah, blah. And I'll write it out. And through that process, I'm able to kind of hear my thought process and go, oh, well, this is what I need to do in this situation. It could be work related, it could be personal, it could be something with branding. But I want people to understand just because you're going to a therapist or journaling, it's not always because of trauma and baggage. Sometimes it's just a way to process thoughts to make a decision in your life.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of decisions, there's this one model that I find so much value in,
Hmm.
to kind of creating a choice. Because when we think about things that we kind of get stuck, or like if we're making the right choice or the right decision, sometimes because we're toiling like forth. This tool or this model that I enjoy using is, it's called the cost benefit analysis.
Okay.
And imagine setting up like on one side, kind of like a pros con list, like if you're visualizing it, but instead of the terms pros and cons, you would put costs on one side and then benefits on the other.
Hmm.
You would think through whatever that choice may be, and then kind of really consider, like, what is it costing me to stay in this situation or to continue life the way that it is? What do I benefit from that? And then really being able to kind of be honest, which is something that I think is can be tough depending on the situation, but to be honest and to really think about what that situation may be costing you and what you're, it can also be very helpful in knowing what decision you actually want to make or where God is leading you when it does come to your next choice or your next decision that you're about to take on.
That's really good. Which also leads into the next point when I was talking about it's not always a negative situation. So once we go through healing processes and we're in a new chapter, we're experiencing the birth of the new us, the healed mindset. How do we, Alicia, navigate new chapters, but we're still finding ourselves from time to time combating old mindsets?
I think that is such a great question. I think there's so many different ways to look at it. The first thing that came to mind, honestly, though, is boundaries. Because
Mm,
when we make that progress, when we go through that healing journey, and when we develop like new understandings and beliefs and ideas of like the world and the way that we want to live, I think it's so important to know that the access that people had to us, the choices that we used to make, that doesn't serve us anymore. And so
Mhm.
it's so important for you to kind of, as you continue in that new mindset, to also adapt limitations to what you know you want to have and how you want to move forward. The access that people have to you, the way that you respond to certain situations, the way that you choose to make certain decisions. Like, you're becoming new, and that comes along with your choices, your decisions, your day-to-day things, because old habits don't die extremely quick. So as you have put in this work in therapy, or even personally, or between you and God, it's going to be so important for you to maintain that. And you have to do it by understanding like what can make you slip up and go backwards. So
Mhm.
really having those boundaries, I think, is a very good start to know how you can maintain what you really need to do.
That's really good. And what tools you mentioned one of my favorite B words, boundaries. I don't think people realize how important that is. It's not about being nasty or being rude. I call it gracious growth. Like, you can grow
Okay.
and do so gracefully. So when we're setting up these boundaries as we're entering new chapters, how can we do that and be gracious but still affirm this is a no for me?
Awareness first. So you have to know what are your no's, you know? So it's hard to implement a boundary in a space that you're not aware that a boundary is even needed to be had. And so be really aware of the decisions that you're making and what's causing you to get upset, or what's causing you to kind of tempt back into your old ways. So having that awareness, but then two, remembering that boundaries are the limit that you place. So when you think about the limits that you need to have, sometimes a great way to indicate a boundary is that one time that you feel upset, you feel bothered by something, maybe really thinking like, being upset or frustrated is a great space for you to be able
Mhm.
to learn what needs to change. And so sometimes being able to kind of have that awareness and have that moment of saying, okay, this is something I need to change. And that can start the limit. But one of my favorite aspects of boundaries is that they can be unspoken.
Mm,
Sometimes this healing journey, we feel that people need to approve of our decision, or they need
yes.
to accept whatever to do next. But one thing, if you all can kind of really remember this point, you're not going into this new space for the people who are back there to kind of accept and approve of everything that you do.
That's good. I like that.
So really knowing that you can move differently without having to announce what your decision or what your difference is.
That's really good. So going deeper into that, um, how can I word this? When we're getting into new spaces and experiencing new chapters, sometimes we can feel like, oh, do I really deserve this? Or the phrase we heard last year so much, the imposter syndrome. So, how do
Hmm.
we celebrate the wins? Because one of the things I heard someone say last year was, I forget her name, it was a lady on Instagram, and she said she always had therapy for her past, her baggage, her pain, the trauma, but she realized she needed therapy, learning how to embrace the wins because it was something she was not accustomed to. And so she felt overwhelmed, but she was working on really living in the moment, really celebrating and enjoying this new chapter and getting everything she could get from it, and having to learn how to switch that mindset from, it's not about me having therapy because it's bad, but having therapy because it's good. And how do I really walk in that newness?
As in, like, and there's so many points that I feel like I can take from that also. But one of
Uh-huh.
the things that is also coming to mind is about, as you are developing like this newness, a huge point about of that is like self-acceptance. But not
Yes.
only accepting like the newness, but being able to accept that in a space of like having kind of like building that confidence.
Yes.
And so when we think of a lack of empowerment, it's a lack of like confidence, trust within ourselves. So as you've gone through like this new cycle or this new belief system of being able to grow and elevate, allowing yourself to be okay with sitting in that moment.
Mhm.
It's so funny you said that, because I was having a conversation today. Sometimes, like, if we were to do something wrong or do something that we didn't like, we will be real quick to like talk bad to ourselves and be like, why do that again?
Yeah.
Get real upset. But it's like, give that same energy to the things that you're doing well. And
Mhm.
sometimes that can feel uncomfortable, but it's so needed. One, it reminds us what we're capable of. But then two, nobody needs to walk around with their head held down just because, they made a bad decision. So it kind of on the motivation. And if that space is kind of uncomfortable for you, like kind of right now, one of the things that I enjoy doing is think about how you would friend. If your friend was telling you like, "Oh, girl, guess what I did the other day?" Or, "Oh, hey, man, like, guess what I just did?" And you would be their number one cheerleader, you deserve that cheer and that applause. Give that to yourself.
I love
Yes,
it.
applause.
That is so good. And what can people do, just digging deeper into this, to prepare for the wins? Like if you're in a wave, because I feel like sometimes if people have gone through things and it's almost like they're bracing for something to happen, it's like, no, relax, like enjoy it. How do you prepare for the next win where you're not bracing like, "Ugh," but just like as Whitley would say, relax, relate, and release. Like, how do we do that, Alicia?
Being present,
Come
honestly,
on.
because when we think about the things that, like, when we think about sometimes, yes, encourage yourself. That's a huge point of it too. And then also being able to be like in the moment. So many times, like when we think about anxiety, which is a
Mhm.
common diagnosis that some people may experience, when we think about that, that's a lot of thought processes dealing with what's to come, the what ifs about what's coming next, or how am I about to handle this situation. You're kind of thinking about what you can prevent and prepare yourself for. And when we think about like depression, those lower moods sometimes are centered around the choices or decision that we've already made. So the past.
Mm.
And anytime that we're kind of stuck in either one of those spaces, we're not allowing time for the present, which is the only thing that we really have the ability to change. And so, really being able to stay true and in the moment and being able to allow yourself to be present and to say, okay, this was a good day. I did do this thing that knocked off my task list, or I did accomplish this goal. And really being able to, as that answer said, encourage yourself because you the bomb, you got it. You know, like when you have something that you set out to do for the week, talk to yourself about how you did that thing. Because if you didn't,
Okay.
you'll be the main one saying, "Oh man, look at me not doing something else." No, you're capable of doing what you set out to do. You're capable of fulfilling the goals. Tap into your God-given ability to accomplish the things that you've been set out to do. You got it, and then acknowledge the fact that you are moving forward.
That's really good. I think being your own hype woman, hype man is super important,
Mhm.
because before anyone else, congratulations, that pat on the back, you need to pat yourself on the back. And I think what you mentioned, that self-speech, that self-talk is so important as far as one of those things in your bag you mentioned about the tools. I totally agree with that. It also ties into what you listen to, what you watch, what you read, because you have to really pour into yourself, especially if you've gone through chapters of mental, physical, or even emotional abuse, or combination of all three. You gotta debunk the junk, but then you have to pour back in and replace the mess with the good stuff.
Mm-hmm. You do. It is like your environment. And if anyone's heard me like talk about mental health before, you know, I love talking about this because your environment plays a huge toll on you.
Mhm.
And so it's so important to be intentional with the things that you're listening to, the people that you're talking to, the things that you are speaking over your life. Like you have to be mindful of what you're saying and what you're doing so you can continue to prepare for the wins, set yourself up for the wins, and continue on this journey of life so you can, you know, be fulfilled. But I like how you were saying, you know, be prepared to pat yourself on the back because you know what that does? Like when you acknowledge yourself, that's building confidence like completely. That's empowering yourself because if you're waiting for someone to give you that compliment or to give you that recognition, you are giving them so much power, first of all. But it's so important to know that if you've done something that you know you set out to do, acknowledge, acknowledge yourself.
Yeah, Reese said, "Woo, the level of intention that is so required of for self."
It can be a lot.
Yes.
It can be a lot,
So
but
with
it's definitely worth it. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I was gonna say, with that intention, you mentioned before the self-care plan, and I do wanna talk about us normalizing self-care. And I don't, yeah, self-care, taking a hot bath or whatever, but Alicia, what is the biggest thing people need to realize as far as normalizing self-care, and not just because I talk to people about it and they're like, oh girl, I just keep forgetting and I've been meaning to do that, or oh, I don't have time. But I'm like, you have time for the things that matter to you. And if you matter to you, you're gonna make time for you. So why are you not doing that?
I think the answer will be different for a lot of people. But being able to normalize it, it does start with knowing that that's something that you need to fuel you. Like when you think about all the days we were on a regular day, on a
Mhm.
regular basis, some of us may be, I don't know if we work, then you're an employer. We got some entrepreneurs because this is a podcast where entrepreneurs connect. So you got some entrepreneurs on here. And then you have some, you also have some parents on this platform. I'm sure you may have friends, but there are so many different titles that we wear all day long. And those titles require so much of us. And even with all the things that are required, it's so essential for you to be fueled and be filled. And that goes back to thinking about what are you listening to? Like, what are you
Mhm.
pouring into yourself to get that fulfillment? Who are you surrounding yourself with to get that fulfillment? And I like to kind of think of it because we all have a phone, I'm pretty sure. But think about what you do with your phone probably every day. There's not an audience that's probably talking right now, so I guess I'm thinking it is. But at any rate, something that you do with your phone all the time is charging it, right? So some of us may have the routine of doing it at night. Some of us may do it in the car. However you do it, you know that you charge it. And if you don't charge your phone for that day, you know it's going to die. It's not going to work.
Eventually,
It's not going to
yeah.
function in the way that it was designed to function because you know it needs to be charged. We are similar. We have to be charged. Sleep can be a form of recharging. As I said before, talking to a friend can be a form of recharging. Being able to kind of sit with yourself and being able to, yes, self care is a priority, but it's a must. It can be challenging, you're right. But being able to think about those things that you can do to fuel yourself, because you can keep going and keep fulfilling all these titles, but you don't want to get depleted because there's so much more that's designed for you to do. And it's not worth getting burnt out on this one situation or this one job. Remember what you need to do when you need to take a step back. And one of my favorite forms of self care is saying no. Okay. Every phone call that comes in does not deserve an immediate answer. Every text.
D&D, the moon. I would use it in a heartbeat.
Oh, girl, Serve is one of my great friends. We use it. If y'all don't know what we're talking about, if y'all have an Apple phone, it's a feature that allows you not to receive notifications from whoever's contacting you.
Yes, I am apostolic.
Now I don't know if Android, I'm not gonna hate on y'all, but I don't know if y'all have anything similar.
No.
But it's just a feature that allows you not to receive those notifications. But being able to give yourself that space and that time and even incorporate that into a routine. Like if there's something that you do for the first 15 minutes in the morning, if there's something that you do on your lunch, being able to step away from work and be like, okay, no, this is my dedicated time that I get for a break. The work will be there when I return.
Mhm. Exactly. Walking, exercise, and like people are like, "Oh, I don't have time." And you're in the office, wherever you are, 15 minutes, step away, walk for 15 minutes, set a timer, come back, take a deep breath. I know I work uptown Charlotte last Wednesday, just with everything going on my lunch break, I walked uptown. I went to a museum for an hour after,
Oh,
had
cool.
my lunch. It was a beautiful day. And
Yeah.
I noticed on Wednesdays, me going outside when it's nice, it really shifts my day instead of just sitting there looking at, building all day. Hey, Cam, you work uptown. There's so much going on. Get your flat shoes or some tennis shoes after you have your lunch, 30 minutes, go walk and explore uptown Charlotte.
How did you feel after doing that?
My goodness, like my mind felt refreshed. I felt recharged because I wasn't thinking about work. Me looking at the art, I found the Gantt Museum. It's the Gantt Museum for African American culture and history, the arts. And so they had like a lot of 90s R&B music, early 2000s music playing in there, and just taking in the art and thinking about our people, the culture, the history. It reminded me of how resilient we are, how powerful we are, how beautiful we are, how intelligent we are, how resourceful. It's just all the adjectives. And then hearing the music and the sounds and the sunshine, my body needed the exercise. I got the fresh air. Um, it was like turning the off switch for like an hour and then coming back to work. My mind was much clearer as far as being able to focus and deal with issues. And it broke up the monotony of the day. Because sometimes we feel like, man, the day is dragging. It's like we look at the clock on our computers, our laptops. So we're like, oh man, it's 1:15, and you think all this time has passed, and then look at your computer and it's only 1:21, and you're like, oh man, this day is dragging. But me
Mhm.
getting out of the office, it really shifted me out of the space of being in the office, not thinking about watching the clock. Oh, it's time to go home. It was
Right.
just to have the difference of atmospheres. It was so good, and I was like, this is something I want to do more often when it's not like here it's really rainy and nasty today, but when it's pretty, Cam, you're going outside, you're gonna take a walk. Period.
Yes, you're doing something. And I love that. Like, I love how you notice the difference that that walk, the museum experience, that it just had for you. So I love that you're able to, even if you didn't feel like it, still committing to taking that break or taking that separation from your workday to fuel you because you need it. So yes,
Really.
girl, with the self care. Mm-hmm.
I like Alicia since being more intentional about my needs and my self care and listening to my body. And I think that's one of the things that's very important. I think Reese made the comment. She was talking about how challenging it can be at times, but she also mentioned about being more intentional about it. And I noticed the days that I don't implement my self care, my attention span is shorter. Um, I'm more likely to be agitated by something small. I'm more irritable. Um, um, I get tired, like mentally tired, because my mind is running all day and I haven't given myself that break. And so when I have those feelings like, hey, by a certain time, I now know that at other than if I'm not podcasting, but 8:30, the phone goes on D&D. I don't care what's going on by 8:30 unless it's super important. I'm on D&D because I know how my mind works, and my mind will run because I'm thinking about so many things. And so I need time for my mind to kind of wind down and say, hey, you're going to bed soon. So let's start setting the atmosphere to kind of shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning D&D, I have LED lights all around my place. So I turn off the main lights. I set it on a lighting that's very mellow. Those that don't know, like that, I can't like here, the LED lights, in my bedroom, in my kitchen area, just because it's a very calming effect. Even when I'm watching on TV, something that's like not like super stimulating. Like I'm not gonna watch Transformers and I'm trying to go to bed because why? It's a lot of action, a lot going on. So I'll find something, maybe like a devotional or maybe a message or a Bible class from online, just because we've been here all day. Now we need to bring it down. So by the time I go to bed and take my hot shower, um, I'm knocked out. Or if I have a sauna night and I put that lavender oil in my sauna, because again, that's very calming. By the time you lay down, you can go to sleep and sleep all night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're like, I get my rest, honey, and I know when I need to start the process to get a great night's rest to be able to get that rejuvenation and get that time that you need in order to give your body the chance to get ready for whatever comes the following day.
Yeah, and I think we're all guilty of it as far as lying in bed and we're scrolling on Instagram or TikTok. And even at that, maybe you need to put your cell phone on the other side of the room where you can't really grab it, because you'll think like, oh, I'm just gonna watch one or two TikTok videos, and then it's 11:30, 12, and now your mind is revved up again, and now you've got to go to bed, but you can't because you've been watching all these reels for 2 hours when you told yourself only 5 minutes.
Yes, and our phones have something called a blue light in them,
Yes.
and even screens like other electronic devices. And it's like when that blue light is like you're looking at it, especially as you're about to prepare for rest, it doesn't give you that resting sensation. If anything, it activates and it not overstimulates, but it stimulates to the point where you're not about to just immediately fall asleep. So it's recommended that even an hour, and I love how Camilla, you're like, all right, I already got my routine. Before the person who may be thinking like, okay, I still am the one who scrolls regularly.
Yeah, that's so true. I think you froze, Alicia. So Alicia's talking about the blue light, guys. I don't know if you all know, but online on Amazon, they actually sell the blue light glasses, that you can wear them for work or even at home when you're working from home on the computer screen. I was actually looking at a pair the other day, and today at work, I did speak with someone in IT to say, hey, I do need a blue light screen just because I noticed I was experiencing strain all the time. So you can also go on Amazon and look at those blue light screens. I think Alicia's going to log out and come back in, but that also helps too. So in the comments, I do want you guys to let me know as far as like what you do to wind down, what you do to unplug. I've shared with you some of the things that I do just because, again, I'm a creative. I'm always thinking about something. My mind is always running. So I think it's very important that we create things and put things in place to help us wind down at the end of the day. Even though I'm not a parent, I'm not a mom. Um, I can only imagine what your schedules are like, especially if you have little ones still at home, and what that can be very daunting and tasking. But if they're doing homework and you know they're focused on homework, maybe that's your time to go journal. Maybe that's your time to go pray and meditate while your child is doing your homework. Or if you're saying, hey, switch off. If you're married, maybe your spouse can cover dinner, for that 30 minutes or whatever the prep time is. And while your spouse is cooking dinner, just maybe a suggestion, maybe that's your time to step away and do your 30 minutes of self-care and just reset. Even if it's 30 minutes, start somewhere. Self-care doesn't have to be a whole thing, a 3 hour marathon. It can be, but just start in increments, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and build up. Because I'm single with no kids, I can pretty much set my self care time to whatever I want. Those that are married, and maybe you can hop in, Alicia, that are married with kids. What do you say to people as far as scheduling that self care time when you're a parent with kids?
You have to be intentional because kids are demanding. I'm a mom of two, and just going from a mom of one to a mom of two, I'm like, ooh, child. So any parent that has multiple kids, I'm just saying, ooh, child, for you. But I do say that you have to be intentional. And so sometimes if that looks like waking up a little earlier before your kids typically wake up, do that. I know that I really appreciate bedtime. So if you know your kid's bedtime and that's an opportunity for you to be able to get some rest after they go to sleep, that could be a great option too, especially for the single parents that are out there. If you do have a spouse or if you do have a partner, being able to have that communication with your partner or your spouse of, hey, this is what I need, this is what I'd like to do on this particular day. So being intentional to schedule it, to set it up, because our kids need us. And it's not as easy to step away from them, especially when they've been at school all day or you've been at work all day. Like sometimes they just want that connection anyway. So being able to schedule it at a time that's going to be realistic, like, if you're about to run out the door and you're like, oh yeah, but I said I was going to steam my face for these couple minutes, that's not a realistic time frame. So being able to take and consider your day, it'll be a great activity for the night before. Just thinking about your day for the next day and see how you can incorporate that time in so you can get into the self-care and the things that you just need for you. I heard someone speak before and they're a parent, and they were like, something that my mom did was we all got home. And when we got home, for the first 30 minutes, we knew we couldn't say nothing to mama. She just said, give me a second. And so she said, for that 30 minutes, though, that was mom's time from work, be ready to go into her second job of the night of getting the kids together and prepare for whatever was to come. But they knew it was kind of like a part of their routine. You go get a snack, you go get this. In 30 minutes, mama's back, and we just edit like, she never needed that 30 minutes. So just kind of finding something that works for you and works for your household and works for the children that you're raising, and just incorporate that in as frequent as you need to.
That's so good. I really enjoyed this conversation. And before we wrap everything up, are there any like takeaways or nuggets that you would like to leave with the viewers and listeners until you come back the next time? And also where people can reach you on social media?
Yes, there is. So, speaking of the self care and being intentional, one of the things that I was led to create is something called an affirmation frame.
Hmm.
And so, what the affirmation frame is, I'm going to try to pull it up. And I know there's a glare, so we'll see how well you all can see it. Oh, it looks like a reflection. It is, it's a frame. And you can put it up. Oh, maybe I can show you on the wall. Let's see. You kind of see it, but it's a frame that you can put up, and it's a way for you to affirm yourself. So if you are at work, or you can put this on the desk because it does sit up just like this. But it's just a time for you to affirm who you are, what God created you to be, your capabilities, your values, your worth. And I think it's so important to think through how we are speaking to ourselves. And this frame is kind of like a physical representation of a way that people can be intentional about like what they're saying to themselves and how they're saying it. So that frame is available. I have like a little Etsy shop. As far as social media, you can reach me at mindyourhealth_. That's my name on Instagram. Thank you. You was all prepared. Didn't even have to go that detailed. And then on
Okay,
Facebook, you sure do, girl. All prepared with all the things. I love that. And then on Facebook, it's Mind Your Health also. If you are interested in getting connected with like therapy services, or if you have any questions for all my African American females that are watching this podcast, I just want to show a little tidbit out there about some support for therapy services. It's called the Loveland Foundation. And that foundation is a organization that can give people support for the cost of therapy services.
okay.
But one of the specifications is being an African American female. So if you all are looking to get some support, if you're in the Nashville area and you're a musician, there's another foundation that is geared towards just supporting musicians. So please reach out if you're like, hey, I want to start therapy, don't know where to begin. Go to Mind Your Health, send me a message, send me a DM. I also have an email on there. And just let me know some of the things that you're looking to get started and find. And I'll see if I can be a support and kind of connect you in the right area.
Awesome. I love it. First of all, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Speaker Podcast. You always bring amazing insight and great information. Everyone, please make sure you go to Instagram and follow Alesia at mindyourhealth_. She has lots of great things there, and more content is coming down the pipeline. If you have any questions, you can DM her or reach her via Facebook as well at the Mind Your Health, as she mentioned before. Yeah, I totally agree. Great information. I definitely appreciate everyone for checking in. Thank you to my godmom, Vidette Putman. That's Alicia's
My
mom.
mama. Thanks for supporting as
Yes.
always.
Thank you to Reese. Thank you to Angela. And also thank you to Montana and Megan for hopping in as well. I know there are some other people hopping in and out. So for those that have been doing so, thank you so much for rocking with this episode of the Speaker Podcast. Also, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Camille.Essick, as well as on YouTube at Camille Essick Official. The information is right there in the lower third. You can also follow. I have lots of goodies, some of my favorite items on my Amazon storefront, as far as my Etsy shop. Digital products are there as well. Chemistry Room Fragrances, you guys know that is my room fragrance collection that is there on Instagram and shop as well. And everything, we cannot leave the brothers out. So follow us there as well on Instagram at Good Black Men Official, and shop online at goodblackmenofficial.com. So with that being said, everybody, this is your girl Camille Essick, host of the Speaker Podcast. Thank you. The podcast where innovators and creators connect. Tune in Tuesday night. Gospel singer and songwriter Janita Gibbs is stopping by. I'm excited to have her back on the Speaker Podcast. It's gonna be hey Pop, okay. And for watching, Danita will be here as well. And then on that Wednesday, we have another guest. So go to thespeakerpodcast.com or just hit me up on Instagram and catch the information there. Lots of good things coming as we roll into the month of May. Alicia was here to help me close out the month of April. Thank you again, Alicia, so much. I think you're the bomb. She's like my little sister, y'all. I love her to life. I remember meeting her when she was a youngin', and now she's a mom and married. I'm just like, Alicia's a mom.
Girl, I'm telling myself the same thing. Like, Lord, you are entrusting me with these two beautiful individuals. I
Yes,
thank you.
but they are so adorable. So thank you again, and I'll see you guys in a few days. Have a great day. Peace. Hold on, Alicia.
Bye.
Bye.